Today we're going to look at a largely misunderstood part of the Christmas story. Many have looked at this passage, misunderstood what is actually going on, and walked away with a wrong application, especially here at what it means that there was no room at the inn. You see, this passage is not meant to convey this idea of don't be the mean innkeeper who had no room for Jesus. But this passage actually conveys that our devotions can be out of order. And we need to make room in our own hearts for Jesus. And exactly what that means, and maybe perhaps how we understand it, is more nuanced than we thought. Maybe there's more to it than we think. The passage starts with a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. That is, all of the Roman world subject to the Roman Empire at the time, which was most of the world. All the world is pretty close. And contrary to Christmas myths that I hear going around this time of year, a census like this was actually quite common in the Roman world. I remember growing up, skeptics saying, oh, we have no evidence of such a thing. But there's actually been a lot of evidence that have come up over such censuses being taken in the Roman world, including one from the neighboring country of Egypt that was almost line for line the same type of decree that everyone had to return to their place of origin to be counted for a census. So pretty interesting. And since Joseph, Jesus' earthly father, was of the lineage of David, he had to go to the city of David, which is Bethlehem, to be registered. Now, Bethlehem, of course, was quite a small town. That familiar Christmas carol is quite spot on. It was a little town. There was maybe, according to some archaeologists, maybe 300 people living in this small city. The small town of Bethlehem. I mean, we could probably fit that many people here in this sanctuary if we paid off the fire marshal. But we could do it. So what would happen in your mind if a small town of about 300 people or so with very limited infrastructure suddenly had 3,000 to 7,000 people descend upon it for the census? What do you think would happen? Same thing that would happen if 3,000 to 7,000 people suddenly showed up here. It would be total chaos. There would be no room for anyone anywhere. We'd be worried about the balcony collapsing. We'd have people on top of and underneath the desks in the back. We'd be stuffing people into closets just to make room for all of these people. No room for anyone, anywhere. So with that in mind, now that we kind of have the picture of how overcrowded this town would have become during the census, we get this picture, the question of whether or not Jesus was seeking a typical lodging place for travelers, such as what you and I would think of as an inn, or a guest house, or a guest room attached to somebody's house, which is what the room inn could also mean. The point becomes irrelevant. There was no room for anyone, anywhere. We can write off this idea of this stern innkeeper refusing room for the Holy Family because of coldness in his own heart. What was he going to do? I'm sure his inn was already bursting at the seams, violating fire codes to fit everybody. So the point of this passage cannot mean that people knew who Jesus was and refused him. It's not the point of this passage. Or that they didn't have enough compassion in their hearts for this traveling couple. It's that there was too much going on for them to even take notice of who just arrived in their midst. Too much was going on for them to see the most important thing that took place in their midst. The tragedy of this passage is not that Jesus was refused or treated with contempt. It's that he deserved all the attention in the whole world, but received None. He was treated simply as one more person in an already overcrowded town. That's the tragedy of there being no room at the inn. And church, this tragedy continues to this day in different forms. We still treat Jesus like that in our own overcrowded lives with too much going on. It's not that we also have no room for him whatsoever. It's that our own lives get filled with so much other stuff that we don't have room for him that he deserves. Therefore, church, making room for Jesus is not this idea of adding Jesus to an already overcrowded life, piling him on top of a bunch of other stuff. It's how much of this mountain of other stuff in my life can I move out of the way to make room for Jesus the way he deserves to have room in my life. Does that make sense? Because I imagine by this point, only the real stragglers among us haven't put up their Christmas trees yet. And I don't blame anybody because that's been me a few years. No judgment here. But to those of you who have gotten your tree up, I've got a question for you. Why don't you have it on display in your closet? Why are you laughing? I'm being serious here. Why not? For some of us, there would be more room there. I don't have to rearrange any furniture to make room for the tree. I can just stuff it somewhere. Hey, got my tree up. No, there's a reason why we don't do that. Because Christmas trees are special. They change the way a home feels just by its presence, don't they? It changes the tone of the home. It cannot just be hidden somewhere affecting nothing. It calls to be in the place of highest display and influence in your home because it deserves that. That is the kind of honor Jesus rightfully demands in our lives. Not some relegated corner, but the place of highest honor, not just in our homes, but in our hearts. But instead, what so often happens in this overcrowded, overbooked season? Jesus himself becomes relegated to a nostalgic afterthought this time of year, doesn't he? We treat Jesus like one of those ugly Christmas sweaters, something we bring out once or twice a year, for this occasion, and then we box it up, toss it away for most of the year, only bringing them out when it's most convenient for us, when we have time for him. Maybe hit this from a different angle, actually. How absurd would it be if, say, you have a absurdly wealthy uncle you didn't know about who gifted you with an incredible Christmas tree, one with gold bars for ornaments and diamonds on it, worth untold thousands of dollars, this insanely valuable Christmas tree. How insane would you have to be that come January, you take this tree that could be worth tens or $100,000, stuff it in a box, and put it away in your attic, and put this thing of immense wealth in your garage to experience the cold and the weathering, with who knows what else gets into our garages. I don't care what else you have going on in your life. Something of that kind of value cannot be relegated to such a place of dishonor. And likewise, church, the value of the Savior demands infinitely more from our lives, doesn't he? And church, unlike the people of Bethlehem that first Christmas, we don't have the excuse of saying we didn't know. We didn't know who was in our midst. We have the scriptures. We have the Christmas stories. We have all of these traditions, literally wreaths going through Broadway at this point. We have so many reminders of what season it is. Since we can't claim ignorance, what's our excuse? Therefore, we must make room for Jesus. And I must confess, I say so knowing it is so easy to let our lives be cluttered with too many good things, especially this time of year. It's no secret to those of you who know me best, know how utterly overwhelmed I've been the last couple of months. This has been an insane season for me. There's just never enough time to do all the things that I want to do. Never enough energy as I'm exhausted at the end of the night. And even I can only drink so many cups of coffee. What we call the tyranny of the urgent rules the day, where we spend our days focused on what is urgent rather than what is important. And there's a massive difference between the two. What has a pressing deadline and I have to get it done now or else it's not going to get done, and what's actually important, what really will change your life if things get done or not. Christmas cards have a deadline. So is gift buying, party planning, house cleaning. All urgent with deadlines staring me in the face, even right now. However, what is most important is spending time with Jesus, enjoying Him, enjoying His presence. I mean, the chief end of man, according to the Old Catechism, is not to impress our in-laws or our neighbors with our Christmas decorations, how soon we get our Christmas cards out, or any of these other things that we do this season. The chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. Every part of that sentence is important. To glorify Him, yes. Serve Him, yes. Do all these, be busy with good things, yes. But also to enjoy Him forever. Taking time to be in His Word, meeting with Him in prayer, worshiping Him at services like this one, and enjoying His presence. This is what Christmas is about. This is what this whole season is meant to bring us to. And without spending time to focus on Him, all this other stuff is meaningless. Meaningless. Church, hear the nuance in what I'm saying. If we skip time enjoying God so that we will have more time writing Christmas cards, it's better the cards don't go out. If we skip our personal devotional time, whatever that looks like for you, to go to more parties or decorate more or do this or that for this season, it's better not to do that and enjoy God's presence. And look, I say this to myself with the finger pointed straight at me more than I'd say this to anybody else. Because what is the point of the Christmas season if we're not actually enjoying Jesus in it? What is the point? Nostalgia? Remembering faint memories of yesteryear? Tradition? These are mere shadows of the substance that we have allowed to be crowded out of our lives. Imagine the absurdity if my wife were to come home after working a shift at the hospital or going to see friends. If she were to come home and I meet her at the door and I go up to embrace her, but instead of embracing her, I embrace her shadow on the wall. Yeah, you'd all put me in the loony bin real quick. But yet when we spend this season working, planning, writing, cleaning, decorating, rather than worshiping, planning, singing, praying, reading Scripture or in fellowship with others, we're ignoring substance to embrace a shadow. And for absolute clarity, those things I'm listing are all good things. I'm not mad at anybody for enjoying things that this Christmas season offers. I'm not against Christmas cards. My family loves them when we get them. And we sent out our own this year. We did all of those things. But when I'm not legalistic in that regard. It's only when good things replace the important things that we need to guard our hearts. Because this is exactly what Jesus confronted Martha about later on in the Gospel of Luke. Many of you guys remember this story where you have the two sisters, Mary and Martha. And Martha, she was busy serving. Serving Jesus in the flesh, by the way. Helping out behind the scenes. You guys think it's a good thing to help out with Jesus? I would say so. If Jesus was here, some of us would probably be in the kitchen downstairs too. But it became a burden to her. It was exhausting for her. And notice, Jesus did not commend Martha. He did not say to her, "Come on, Martha, it's only for a short period of time. It'll get quieter in January and you can enjoy me then." He doesn't say that to her. No, he says what Mary has chosen, what her sister had chosen. As her sister decided to stay seated at Jesus' feet, enjoying his presence. There's a lot of busyness going on. There's urgent things happening constantly around her. And Mary said, "I'll get to that later. Right now is my time with Jesus." And Jesus himself said, that is the better portion. That will not be taken from her. Mary was unwilling to let it go, and Jesus was not going to ask her to give it up. That was the better portion. And yet we freely give away what Jesus calls the better portion for what Martha found burdensome. And we wonder why we feel burnt out. We wonder why the magic is gone this time of year. We wonder why our heart's devotions aren't what they usually are or what they once were. So church, my encouragement to us today, to boil it all down, let's make devotional time sacred again. For some of us, that might mean waking up earlier, getting our devotions in before we start the day, before all the urgent things start to push us out. Some of us, it might mean staying up a little bit later. I don't encourage doing both, though. Some of us are already exhausted. Or canceling plans, but whatever it might be, it's absolutely worth it to make room for Jesus, especially as we're adjusting some of our routines, looking into this new year ahead. As for me, my pastor actually challenged me to read the Bible in a year this next year coming up. And, I've done that a couple of times. I think I did it last time we did it here at a church, 2 years ago, something like that. And I think that's exactly what I need in this coming year personally, to refocus myself, to spend that kind of intentional time in the Word. It only takes about 15 minutes a day to read through this whole book in 1 year. When you break it down to those bite-sized increments, it's not all that intimidating. And the amazing thing is, if you do it, and I highly encourage you to do it too, it'll radically change your life. It transforms this mysterious book that you think maybe only the pastor knows how to read into your own personal portal, into the throne room of God, to enjoy him personally yourself, unassisted by anybody else around you. And what do you know? Turns out it's written in English these days. Not some strange Latin thing. We had that Reformation for a reason. But that's how I'm going to prepare room this year. Being open and honest, and now I'm accountable to a whole church. Oh boy, I better keep it. So I ask, what about you? You don't have to do things the same way I'm doing it, but what is your way of making room this time of year Before Advent and Christmas is even over, how are you going to make room? How are you going to prepare your hearts to celebrate the newborn King? How are you going to reorder your devotional time moving into the new year as we're adjusting and reevaluating some of our routines? How do you plan on keeping Jesus front and center when the tyranny of the urgent calls for you as well? Well, in a moment, I'm going to be calling us all to come forward for a sanctifying moment here at this church. We have this tradition of coming up and laying these cloths over the cradle, symbolic of welcoming Jesus this Christmas time, preparing for his coming. And first and foremost, when we come forward, well, that is what this means. We're saying, Lord, we believe there's room for you in my heart, Jesus. I welcome you here. I'm seeing your arrive deeply in my own heart. But this year I also want it to mean, Jesus, I'm making room for you. I'm clearing out some stuff for you. I'm going to reorder parts of my life to be able to enjoy you more. And I encourage each of us, when we come forward, as you're placing it over, have what that means to you in mind. Making that own decision. What that looks like for you. What are we taking off of our calendars? What routines are we setting up to spend time with Jesus? How would it look different if we put Jesus in the place of honor in our life, just the way that the Christmas tree currently has a place of honor in our homes and visibility, changing the tone of our homes? How would rearranging our lives so that Jesus changes the tone of my life looks like? So whatever that means for you this year, come with it. Come lay it down here on the cradle, before God and before others. You don't have to announce it to everybody what you're doing, but announce it in your own heart. But as for me, I know what this one means for me. So let's come forward. Let's make room.